From college essays to graduate statements to career transitions, Jennifer Ansbach coaching helps every learner take the next step with confidence. Whether you're a high school senior preparing for college, a graduate school applicant, or returning to school after time away, your words can open doors. Write, revise, rise. Visit JenniferAnsbach.com to get started. That's Jennifer, ANSBACH.com. And welcome back to the monthly weather roundup. We are going to recap the month of November that was. I'm Joe Martucci. He's New Jersey State Climatologist Dr. Dave Robinson. We were talking about Thanksgiving during the break. You didn't want to be too mean to the holiday, but not your favorite, you said.
Oh, it's my favorite for family, and I love the fact that you can wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, and there's no not happy holidays or whatever. I'm just not a big fan of turkey and dressing and blah, blah, blah. I kiddingly told you before, I'd just assume have Thai food on Thanksgiving Day. But getting together with family, it's wonderful.
Going off the Thai food thing, I have said for a number of years, one year for Thanksgiving, I want to go down to Atlantic City to the Borgata buffet for Thanksgiving. But my wife says she doesn't want to go out for Thanksgiving. That's cold if you go out for Thanksgiving. So maybe I have to go with you for Thai on Thanksgiving one year.
Yeah, well, yeah, maybe. We went out for a Thanksgiving Day with family members a couple years ago. It was very strange being at this buffet on Thanksgiving Day with a whole lot of other people. But man, talk about eating a lot that day. So no, it's all good. No, it's all good. Love the holiday, the spirit, and being with family and friends. It's great.
And we're recording this on December 2nd. Speaking of the holiday spirit, you missed out on some of the festive flakes. But some of our friends in Northwest New Jersey got it. We'll talk more about that in the December wrap up. But we had a little bit of snow on the 2nd here across Northwest New Jersey.
And it's not their first snow. They saw snow in North Jersey and flurries scattered throughout parts of South Jersey on an occasion or two in November. But today's snow up in the far Northwest in some areas exceeded 2 inches for the first time this season.
All right. And that means, like you were saying off camera, that means the snow map comes out on your website. You could check that out. It'll be out a couple days afterwards, right?
It'll be a couple of days.
Yeah. NJ, is it the climate website or njclimate.org for the snow maps?
Right. Exactly.
Yes. njclimate.org for the snow maps. Anyway. All right. So we got a couple things to cover this month. I wanted to start off here with the end of hurricane season. Hurricane season came and went. Hurricane season ended on November 30th. This was our first year in about a decade. We had no U.S. landfalls. I think that's the big takeaway from this. It's a positive takeaway. So that's some good news here. Overall, and we're not hurricane forecasters, neither one of us, but it felt like a quieter year compared to forecasts. But again, this just shows that hurricane forecasts don't necessarily talk about who's going to get hit where. As we saw, we were still fairly active in the number of storms we had, but we just didn't have any of them making landfall in the U.S. This year in 2025.
Yeah, there are some forecasters who like to say it's going to be a year for the Atlantic coast or a year for the Gulf or a year for the Caribbean. I never take much credence with that. As you said, it was, let's not forget Melissa hitting Jamaica and eastern Cuba. Devastating, deadly storm, incredibly powerful storm. But it was mostly what we call fish storms.
Fish storms.
And they did a job. Erin did a job on the New Jersey coastline with some erosion and flooding. Bermuda was threatened a few times. There was a tropical storm early in the season that made landfall along the southeast coast. But yeah, we dodged a year when there were some notable. What were there? 3 Category 5 storms in the Atlantic this year?
Yeah, there were 4 major hurricanes. I had that as a note. I don't know the number.
I don't know if they all went to 5. Yeah.
Did they all go to 5?
No, I don't know. I don't know. As you said, we're both neither hurricane aficionados, but we really were very fortunate in a year that was when you look at both the numbers and the energy indices that they apply to these storms, it was a little above normal. As you mentioned, we know there was a La Nina coming on, and that generally leads to an active season. I think it was a little bit overestimated
Yeah.
by the forecast community. And here we're speaking here in early December, and there have been multiple cyclones in the Southwest Pacific over the last couple of weeks that have devastated Sri Lanka, Indonesia. Philippines have been hit, Vietnam's gotten hit, and there's still some active storms out there. So it may not be active along the East Coast or the Gulf Coast, but globally, it's been a pretty powerful season, particularly of late in the Southwestern Pacific.
Yeah, very true. And, we ended up with, I have the numbers here, 13 total storms, 5 hurricanes, and 4 of the major hurricanes. The average is the 1991 to 2020 average, 14.4 named storms, 7.2 hurricanes, 3.2 major hurricanes. So, we were about average on the named storms and the major hurricanes, and I would say below average on the hurricanes. There again, there was, most forecasts were for a slightly above average year. I wouldn't say it was a busted forecast.
No,
There have been better ones. Wasn't a bust. And again, any year that there's no direct U.S. landfalling hurricanes is a good one. I think the tropical storm you're talking about is Chantel, which went through
that
Florida.
might be it.
And
Okay. Okay,
yeah.
that might have been. And before anyone corrects my geography, I mentioned Sri Lanka and recent storms. I know those are cyclone. That's a cyclone in the Indian Ocean.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Uh,
You know what? That went over my head. So that's, you're the
yeah, I
PhD. You
realize.
have the geography degree. I mean, I don't. So I was just trusting you on that.
No, I don't have a geography degree yet. I've been in a geography department as a professor for over 35 years.
Yeah, but that's true. That is true. That is true. Anyway, yeah. So and another thing too, we can still get a storm in December. It
Yeah.
kind of is a little confusing. I don't know if you have thoughts on this, but like hurricane season, like it doesn't just end and it end. Like we chose November 30th for it to end. The weather didn't choose November 30th. I don't know why we do that. Maybe you know why. Like, why don't we just say 2025 or I don't know.
And it doesn't start officially till June 1st. It's just based on a general climatology, but there are always exceptions to this rule. I'm not even trying to tie it into climate change, although there's some suggestions that the season may be getting somewhat extended because of warmer ocean
Yeah,
waters
sure.
persisting later into the fall, for instance. And, the height of the season is the first 2 weeks of September. But look at Sandy. Those are the
Yeah.
29th of October. So
Hmm.
you can let your guard down now for any storms to come in this direction, just as you can basically let your guard down to much convective activity and thunderstorms now. But many of us have heard thunder, seen lightning in nor'easters in the middle
Yeah.
of winter.
Yeah.
And we've had some major outbreaks in November. Now we're into December, but you don't have a lot of that activity that's generated by warm air masses.
Yeah.
We know that these nor'easters and mid-latitude lows get their energy from clashes of warm, mild at least, and cold air. When you're talking thunderstorms, it could be partially that, or it could be in a very warm air mass. And of course, hurricanes like to percolate over warm waters all by themselves, and they don't want any cold air
Right.
near them.
No, no, they like a nice environment around them to hang out and to do their thing. All right, so we'll move from hurricanes to cold. There was in the middle part of November the talk of something called sudden stratospheric warming. Doesn't really roll off the tongue as well as like polar vortex or something. But what that is we get a big surge of warm air in the stratosphere. That's the layer above the troposphere where we are. So we're talking 60, 70, 80,000 feet high, higher than that. A big warming. And what it could do is reverse the spin of the polar vortex. So instead of it coming from a westerly direction, it comes from an easterly direction. And that really disturbs the polar vortex. Um, I have, and you can correct me here, I have not seen an official we went a sudden stratospheric warming event in November. Is that true?
No, I haven't seen that, but it was early to even have the threat of it.
Yes.
You mentioned the reversal of winds, and we're mostly talking up in the polar, North Polar region.
Yes. Should have said that too. Sorry about that.
And the winds blow very rapidly there. And when they slow down, they it allows things to wobble a little bit. And that allows these surges of cold air to escape near the surface out of the polar regions into the middle latitudes. Um, no one knows exactly why they occur. No one has tied these events well into climate change or anything like that. They're just weather anomalies. And what I think is so neat about it, it shows you how the different layers of the atmosphere talk to one another, if you
Yeah.
will, and how something that happens above jet aircraft level can translate down eventually to the surface of the earth in terms of these bulges of colder air. And it's similarly, where the cold air comes down one place, warm air comes shooting up somewhere else. And this was early. It takes a couple of weeks to evolve, and then it could disappear for the season and go back to a normal pattern, or it could a resurgence of that of cold air later in the season with another stratospheric warming event.
Yeah, and it does look like that it is going to be something where it reloads. Our buddy Dr. Judah Cohen, he was on Title Flooding Talk, our other show that I do here, last Tuesday, talking about how he thought it could be something where the polar vortex kind of reloads and influences our weather here in the eastern United States. But just to your one last point of sudden stratospheric warming, if it did actually happen in November, it would be the first time in the satellite era, so since the late 60s, that
Yeah.
would have occurred. Either way, the polar vortex was disturbed, whether it was this sudden stratospheric warming event or, a lack of a better word, a normal polar vortex disruption. Something happened during that time. And that's why, as we go into December, we could be talking at the end of this month saying that it was a colder than average month in the month of December. It certainly looks that way. Talking to you on December 2nd, we'll see what happens when the numbers come out.
Yeah.
But this kind of goes into our next topic here. But if you're a snow lover out there, which you and I are both, one thing that I have noticed is that when it's cold, it's dry. When it's mild, it's wet. And that's not what you want. You want the opposite. You want the opposite. Let it be 60 and sunny, not 35 and sunny. And that's kind of where we look. They kind of started at beginning of November, at least into the mid-December. That kind of looks to be the case. We just don't want to waste that cold air, Can't waste it.
Last winter is a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
December, January, and February, 3 consecutive months with below normal temperatures. That's very unusual in this day and age in New Jersey. But in the middle of it, you had the third driest January in 131 years of record. So we had plenty of cold. And occasionally, you remember that storm track gave southern Jersey a couple of snow events and down to DC. But those storms right out to sea, they didn't make the left turn and come up the coast. That's the nature of a La Nina winter, and certainly what we saw last winter.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're going to take a break here. We'll come to you back on the other side with our monthly weather roundup. Welcome back, everybody, to the monthly weather roundup. And the monthly weather roundup is brought to you by Jennifer Ansbach Coaching. From college essays to graduate statements to career transitions, Jennifer Ansbach Coaching helps every learner take the next step with confidence. Whether you're a high school senior preparing for college, a graduate school applicant, or returning to school after time away, your words can open doors. Write, revise, rise. Visit JenniferAnsbach.com to get started. That's Jennifer, ANSBACH.com to get started. All right, I found my stat I wanted to find here. Now, this is after an early sudden stratospheric warming event, there were two winters that had this: 1981, 1982, 1987, 1988. I know you and I weren't alive for both of these,
All right, speak for
right?
yourself.
So I don't remember it. I have no recollection of this. But January of 82 and January of 88, they were cold. Dude,
Yeah,
does that ring a bell?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. 82 in particular.
Yes, 9.2 degrees below average. I think it was the sixth coldest January on record, if I'm correct.
But they weren't particularly snowy, I think you're going to say.
I don't have any. No, I don't have any snow data on that. I only have temperature
As I
data.
recall, no, they don't stand out.
Okay, but
Well, no, because the next winter, 82, 83, we had one big snowstorm in the middle of February, but it was a relatively mild, snowless winter. So we're talking the winter before that.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So if I think that we'll still see if we had that early SSW as we call it, but if we did, you can definitely past history says it's very cold in January and even February's on the colder side also.
Yeah,
All
the
right.
trouble with these stratospheric warmings and the bulges that come down into the middle latitudes of the polar, you don't know exactly where it's going to come down. Last week,
Yep.
they thought it was going to be more towards western, central US, and it looks like it's setting up to be more central, eastern US.
Yeah.
Very warm from the Rockies west with very little snow. Meanwhile, the last week has dropped several significant snows in the Midwest and the up in the plains into New England today.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to predict where that's going to drop in.
And remember too, right? Last point, but on this, but 500 miles, 700 miles is not that much in the grand scheme of the earth. I mean, same thing with these coastal storms. I mean, if we have, you know, let's say Monmouth County was supposed to snow and it didn't, I mean, that's only 35 miles. Like, that's not a lot in the grand scheme of things, but that's our job. That's our job. That's why I do it. You don't.
That's what I was just gonna
I
say.
knew you were coming at that.
That's your problem. I mean, that's the nightmare, the rain snow line for
Yes.
anyone forecasting. I give you guys a lot of credit, and you and I know some others, real professionals, are understand that and are not quite reticent about saying more than generalities within 72 hours of the event
Yeah.
because you simply don't know for miles where that's going to set up. You know there's going to be a storm. You know there's going to be cold air involved with it, but you don't know exactly where the high pressure center is going to sit to the north. That's
Yeah.
going to help funnel cold air down the Hudson Valley into New Jersey
Yeah.
and keep a snowstorm snow and not turn it over to rain.
Right.
So I come to the meteorologist's defense all the time, and making it very clear that the state climate office, there's a good reason we don't forecast the weather. It keeps us out
Right.
of trouble.
Your page is very quiet in the lead up into the storm on Facebook, right? It's after the
Well,
storm where you have the
yeah,
posting.
we report what happens afterwards, and our weather network, we post the National Weather Service forecast because we know people are interested in the forecast. We don't do the forecasting, and we just prefer to go with what the National Weather Service says, as opposed to someone like you who gets very specific and hyper local, if you will, for coastal areas. So there's a great dynamic there, a real positive one,
Yeah.
where the public sector, the Weather Service looks at the bigger picture, and then folks like you can hone in on the local level.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
that's better than it's ever been. There used to be more of a clash between the two, but really, I've seen that evolve in my career. Maybe that's another topic for a slow weather month we can
So,
talk about.
I mean, this weather month was kind of slow. And look at us. We only have
It,
8.5 minutes
kind of
left. So
was.
I
It
don't know.
kind of
We'll have to
was.
find, maybe we'll have to do an hour-long special one day, and we'll have to let it
Well,
all happen.
we should sum up the month. I mean, temperatures
Yeah,
were
we should. Yeah. Yeah.
about normal, maybe
Yeah.
leaning a little below, although the
Yeah.
prelim
Yeah.
numbers I've seen from um, the National Centers for Environmental Information today show it was a tad above, but I think they're going to be revised down. But we should talk precip.
Yeah. Let's talk precipitation
That's
here.
important.
Dry is
Yeah,
I think what you want. We didn't talk about this before, but I'm assuming you meant dry because I saw that too.
yeah.
It looks based on some of the individual locations about half of the rainfall and melted snow that we would usually see in the month. Was that true across
Ye-
just the Jersey Shore, or where were we at?
Yeah, ballpark. Yeah, I mean, the Jersey Shore had been better off in recent months than inland. And this month it flipped a little bit, and the Jersey Shore was a little drier. 2 inches is a pretty good number for what we experience. And we normally should be somewhere 3.5 inches or so, maybe a little bit more in some spots. So, yeah, half, 2/3 of normal. But what's really telling is now we can look back to September of 2024. So we can look back 15 months, and only two of them had above normal precipitation in New Jersey. That's
Hmm.
last May, which was the seventh wettest, and last July, which was a little above normal. 13 of the 15 have had below normal precipitation, not to the extent of what we saw last January, certainly October of 24 and September of 24. But this isn't good. Overall, about 75% of normal precipitation over the last 15 months. And over that long a period of time, to only have 3/4 of average precip is pretty noteworthy. And, we're statewide, we're in a drought watch now. It's official that on Thursday of this week, there will be a hearing to determine and discuss whether New Jersey will go to a drought warning.
Hmm.
We were in a drought warning late last fall and last winter. There are no restrictions of water use applied to a warning. That comes with an emergency, and we didn't get to that last year, and hopefully we'll stay far away from it in the coming months. But it's just an additional heads up that, groundwater hasn't replenished itself close to where it should be in coastal southern New Jersey with the
Yeah.
sandy soils. It goes back a year or two now. And inland, the rivers are low. Soil moisture's been low this time of the year, and with the rain we had today, no. The reservoirs are kind of holding their own up in the north, but stream flow isn't great. So there is concern. And this is the time of the year where it can be sneaky. You don't necessarily realize that it's dry. But so stay tuned. We'll have to see what New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection has to say after this hearing this coming Thursday as to whether they will determine, based on discussion and feedback, whether it's appropriate to ratchet up the watch to a warning. And we'll see. You look today, it's raining. Well, an inch of rain is great, but we average about an inch of rain a week.
Right.
And so we need that inch next week and the next
Yeah.
week and the next week. And we just haven't been able to string that together. And thus concerns. We had a good soaking of rain the end of October, and then nothing but, last week we had a pretty good one. This week, a good one. Well, it'd be great to get on a roll and be able to say 6, 8 weeks from now that 5 of the last 8 weeks, 6 of the last 8 weeks, we had normal or above normal precipitation.
Yeah.
Then we can start relaxing a little bit. But
So, or God, I'm sorry, you can finish.
no, I mean, it's such a precious commodity. I'm all for looking at temperatures and anomalies, but there's nothing more important than getting enough moisture into this region to keep us out of trouble.
Absolutely. And two things I was going to say with this was, one, did we have, and you might have said this, did we have any days in November where somewhere saw over an inch of rain in one day?
I've
I
been,
took a peek and I didn't see anything, but maybe you knew.
I don't know, and
Not
I
to put you on the
usually have the
spot.
numbers by now, but I've been so swamped with
That's all
things
right.
that I haven't done a breakdown of every storm event for the month. If we resume this maybe at 10 o'clock tonight, because that's what
Okay.
I plan to do after dinner tonight is
Wow.
is to
big night at the Robinsons, big
yeah,
Tuesday night.
well, it beats doing budgets redoing some budgets for some grants last
That
night.
could be true. That could be true. Good point. Yeah, hopefully this is something we can dig out of. And I was gonna say, I've seen the Brick Reservoir and even the Manasquan Reservoir. They're both, I mean, they just look low. I don't know what the percentages are, but they just look low. I mean, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
so it's not time to no panic button. As I said multiple times last winter, this is the time of the year when you have very little evaporation and water consumption goes down. So this is when you rely on this cool season to replenish your groundwater, your stream flow, your reservoirs. And we still have time. We still have into the early spring. Last year, we didn't have it through April, and it was really getting nervous. And then along came the savior rains of May, which
yeah,
frankly kept Jersey from having water restrictions. I think it's very simple to say. There would have probably been a drought emergency, and
yeah,
that's me speaking, just me, last summer, where there would have been some restrictions on lawn watering and car washing and in some industries some water restrictions, and we escaped that. Um, it's the nature of the beast. We don't get even numbers of rain close to normal every month, but
right.
this is too long a string with too few months with above normal precipitation.
Yeah. Well, let's hope we change that. Maybe with some snow. That would be nice. Uh, couple
Well,
inches.
just so people know,
Yeah.
when it snows, we melt that snow down and get the liquid equivalent, and that's part of our monthly precipitation total.
Mhm.
So it plays an important role.
Yeah, it does. All right, we have 90 seconds for this part, and then we got to wrap up, unfortunately. But the growing season, we'll go back to temperatures here.
Uh,
Growing season has ended across the state, right? Done.
It took until November 29th. We have 69 of our stations, and we also look at Newark Airport as well. The last four stations got down to freezing on the 29th, and that was Little Egg Harbor Township, Atlantic City Marina, and on the Delaware Bay, our stations at Fortescue and Lower Alloways Creek Township. Earlier in the month, Harvey Cedars and Seaside Heights and Seagirt had gotten below freezing, but it took till the 29th for those four stations to finally reach the freezing mark for the fall season. Meanwhile, up in Walpack in Sussex County, the first freeze was, I think it was October 3rd. So 60 days difference almost in being able to keep your garden growing, if you will. And that's just in the spring. We have to look back now at the last freezes of last spring to see how long the summer growing season was. That's another thing I've got to do. And read, this is a good ad. Read, go to
There
njclimate.org
you
in a
go.
couple of days, and you'll see the November and fall summaries for the state, and we'll answer some of these questions.
Excellent. Yep, you can always go there for more. We're gonna wrap it up here. We'll be back with you at the end of December. It's going to be our December weather roundup, and then our top weather events of 2025. We will both be putting out our lists, and we'll see how we compare and contrast. That's always a fun one. We like that.
That's always a fun one. Just
Yeah.
remember, folks, Joe does his for coastal sections.
Yes.
I have to give all of New
Yeah.
Jersey equal attention.
You have the harder job on that one. I have the harder job with the day-to-day weather. You have the harder job on the top 10.
Oh no, it's great. It's always fun to discuss and reminisce, as everyone who listens to this podcast know we
Yes.
incessantly do.
Yes.
But yeah, I've got a couple in mind, but I have not yet started putting a list together.
Okay.
It's on
I
my
haven't either.
it's on my to-do list, but it's not the list yet.
Right. It's not it you still gotta go past your 10 o'clock looking at the data appointment first.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, for Dr. Dave Robinson, I'm Joe Martucci. Thanks for watching the monthly weather roundup. Happy holidays to everybody. We'll be back with you again towards the new year with more. Take care, everybody.